A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. I'm Ritwika Gupta and you're watching part 4 and the final part of our highlights from our inaugural Mumbai Springboard. Tonight on the show, I'm bringing you a conversation on India's education sector. What will it take for institutions to provide a holistic development for the leaders of tomorrow, and much more. On the show tonight, I get chatting with Aisshwarya DKS Hegde, Edupreneur and Trustee Secretary, National Education Foundation, on her journey, perspectives on education, and what it means to be a young entrepreneur in India today.
Mumbai, India's financial heartbeat and a city of unending possibilities. A hub of growth, innovation and opportunity, driving India's economic ambitions. With a legacy of empowering India's MSMEs, this knowledge series brings together industry experts to share insights to propel India's entrepreneurs onto the global stage. IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow, Mumbai Springboard, exclusively on ET Now.
Thank you, Aisshwarya, for joining us today. At Leaders of Tomorrow, we feature a lot of young entrepreneurs, and this is why I am particularly excited about this conversation, because you are shaping young minds. You are actually making an impact in the education sector. You're a dynamic leader in that sector. So I want to begin this interview by asking you your journey, how it all started, the genesis. I understand you started off managing one school and now you actually helm about 5 prestigious institutions managing over 4,500 students. So tell us how it all began.
Thank you, Ritwika. Good evening to everyone present here. I call myself an edupreneur and not an entrepreneur because I think I work in one of the most important sector in our country, that's education. And how it all started is, actually I feel like every journey back then for a parent is looking at their child and saying, would you want to be an engineer or doctor? No parent looks at the child and says, do you want to be an entrepreneur, right? And we're all entrepreneurs sitting in this room. So just like that, I was also pushed into an engineering college, started off with engineering. Finishing engineering, as you pass on engineering, I thought maybe I should get into Amazon or Microsoft. Got into an interview, started there, but then one point of time, my father disrupted my life. We're talking about disruption today, and my life got disrupted and said, no more engineering. I have a college or a school, why don't you start taking that? And we were talking a lot about opportunities in entrepreneurship, and that was one opportunity that fell by my way, and I said, let me take it up. And education was not by choice to me, but if you ask me today, it is my passion, it is my everything. And why I say that is because education helps me keep the child in me alive. And I think it's very important as entrepreneurs that we all keep the child in us alive. And today, the most important skill that we all have to keep or develop is to ask the right question. And who are the best people to ask the right question is our children. So this is how my journey started. It started with one school, and I went on to managing 5 schools today, and also in an engineering college and various other institutions. So I managed to about 15,000 students today, starting from the range of 3 years to about 25 years, up to they do up to PG. And then I'm also co-founded various educational products. And in the journey of education, I always asked myself, where there is a scope of changing trends and we're always asking, are we prepared for the change, right? There's one question that I asked myself in the 7 years of journey, what will not change in the education system? When I ask myself that question, I feel one thing that's not going to change in the education system is to acquire the right skills and hold the right values within us to actually develop that skill and actually represent that skill back, right? So that became my core. So it was not pedagogy or academics that always education gets defined as that became my core, but became value-based education and skill development. And today I stand by here as an edupreneur, managing these institutions and empowering the future of my country.
Fantastic. And just on that note, tell me then, what is your current take on the landscape of education here in India today? Do you think institutions are providing that holistic development? If you can just touch on that, because education, it leads to a lot of young minds, shaping a lot of young minds, the leaders of tomorrow, are they doing enough to like also, inculcate an entrepreneurial mindset in children?
Firstly, to understand the education sector in India, we have more than 15 lakh schools. I'm only talking about school sector, 15 lakh schools. We have more than 97 lakh teachers. We have more than 49 crore children in our country today, and that's the huge sector that we're talking about. And if we have to talk about the MSME sectors, we have to understand that more than 4.4% of our GDPA is contributed by public sector spending on education in our country. But if you have to talk about the education sector, it's a very transformative, dynamic fun. And it's, I think, mixed with a lot of opportunities and challenges. It's great that the public and private sectors have partnered up today and try to create the national education policy where holistic education has now come into play, where we're having a lot of entrepreneurship mindset. I feel education before was creating workers, but today, yes, we are creating thinkers, which is great. There has been great progress in the enrollment of the education sector, but there are various challenges. Challenges mainly could be, there is a huge gap and unevenness in the quality of education, especially in the privileged sector and the non-privileged sector. And our country is so huge. We're talking about scale, we're talking about our opportunities, but this divide that exists is also a concern. Secondly, I feel the technological problem that has caused, especially after the pandemic, it's probably because technology is a great catalyst to education, but the use of technology has to be ethical, and that's not being taught to our children. The next biggest challenge is our students are great, but our teachers are not trained enough. Like AI has come in today and we're all using ChatGPT. Our children use AI better than our teachers. Isn't that a problem? Tell me how many programs do you know where we're training teachers, but there are various programs in the market where we are teaching and giving opportunities to children to learn various technologies. So there is no balance between how you're educating your educators while you're educating your children. And that gap is going to create a lot of disparity in the process of education in my country.
Absolutely, yeah. Also, what role can education play, in not just academic excellence, but also for, life's broader challenges, like I mentioned, to develop an entrepreneurial mindset, or even in general, education needs to go beyond academic excellence. Do you agree?
Education has to play the role. Do we learn as adults? But isn't that supposed to be taught when we were children? Shouldn't making mistakes be normalized when we were children, which is why as entrepreneurs we would have become better entrepreneurs today?
Yeah, learning is a lifelong journey, right?
It is a lifelong journey, but I feel we could have learned much more better when we practiced to make mistakes and get up faster from them when I was a child than when I'm an adult. It's probably harder to learn a new language today when I'm an adult than when I was a child. And that's what scientific language also tells us, right? Absolutely. So considering that, I feel education has to do everything with an entrepreneurial mindset today. And somewhere we are not doing it right in the education sector. And education is defined as academics. Education is not academics. Education is life skill. Education is about taking risk. Education is about accepting mistakes. Education is about scoring less, but able to accept that, yes, I've scored less, and how do I do myself better tomorrow in a better exam? But that's not okay. The moment you score less, you're put as a non-average student and put across, and you're demotivated. And that's what our school system does to us today. Yeah. And today, I don't know how many of you in the room feel this way, but many of us in our country say, oh, what did I learn in school? Isn't that a sad statement to be hearing across? Everything that I do today should have been learnt in school.
Agree, absolutely.
And to make sure that happens is what I'm working in the industry today.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. And tonight we are showcasing the highlights from our inaugural Springboard in Mumbai.
Aishwarya, I read one of your interviews where you mentioned preparation is the key to success. Now, I find that very interesting because that belief, contrasts with the philosophy of luck and innate talent as well. So do you think that it's a bit of everything, or do you have a special role for preparation?
A lot of people say it very easily that you're lucky when you actually succeed. But I feel like luck is when preparation meets opportunity. It's very important to be prepared, but it's also very important to identify your opportunity. And if you can't identify your opportunity, then there's no point and you're not going to be lucky. And if you're not prepared when the opportunity is in front of you, then also it's of no use. Then also you're not lucky enough. So luck is something that you give yourself when you're constantly working hard and preparing yourself, and you're aware about the opportunities that are in front of you, and you take that opportunity and add on your preparedness to it and make that your lucky life. So whether you go to a job interview or whether it's going into your investor, you should be able to prepare well and present in front of your investor as well as grab that opportunity, right? So that's when you get lucky. If you have that opportunity in front of you and you're not prepared enough, then where's the luck coming from? So I don't believe anything is called luck. Luck is a language given when there is a marriage of preparedness and opportunity coming together. And that's when luck happens.
Fantastic. Tell me, as a young woman in business, what were the unique challenges or opportunities, did you encounter, and how did that, shape your approach to leadership, entrepreneurship?
Being young was the biggest challenge, especially in education. I feel young and education don't match when society looks at you.
Really?
The fact that you were young is like, oh, she's not that experienced, how can she be in education? Is the first question that's thrown at you. So that was one of the biggest challenges, but I feel whenever there's a challenge, there's also an opportunity. And I'm prepared for the opportunity, which is why I get lucky, is what I like to believe. And that's how I want to think of myself also. And how I do that is, when people say you were young, I feel like because I was young and because I passed out so much more recently than anyone else in education, I could look back and ask myself, what did I miss in my school that my children would want more? And by bringing those reforms into schools is why I have succeeded today and sitting in front of you today. Because my children can relate to me better. So I urge many more youngsters to get into the education field, because I feel they will be able to relate to their children better, they will be able to support them better, and they will be able to bring about much more stronger entrepreneurs to the society for a better India better, which somewhere we're lacking. So we really have to use the opportunity and not wait for an older age to come back and teach others. But as and when we are young, as and when we are learning, we have to hold 10 other people around us and grow. And that's what education gives us an opportunity to. So that was one of the biggest challenges. The second biggest challenge that I face is the parent community looking at me and saying, she doesn't even have a child. What is she giving us gyan about education? How do you tackle that? And I must quote Sadhguru on this. I went to him one day and I was like, Sadhguru, I have this question being asked all the time. How do you answer? He said, do you go to a psychologist because the psychologist has a problem? Is what he asked me. And that answered my question. So next time everyone asks me saying that, oh, you're giving parenting gyan, are you a parent yet? I said, you don't go to a psychologist or a gynecologist because she's delivering babies every day or she has a psychologist problem every day. So when you're in the field, you're working passionately for the field, you have to have an open mind to listen to them. I'm okay to be judged, but I want you to listen first. That's my only request to the person on the top. So that helps. And today, as you rightly said, I'm on social media, I'm trying to progress my work, I'm trying to portray my work. And that helps because I feel like every parent out there putting their child in school is around my age. So they relate to me, they're looking at what is required in the education system. They feel she's bringing what I thought should be in the education system. They are my service providers. Scale is meeting my opportunity is meeting my preparedness, which is why I've got lucky today.
Fantastic. Aishwarya, I know that you're also very passionate about empowerment, especially when it comes to women. And I want to ask you, what advice would you have for women entrepreneurs, especially young women entrepreneurs? We try and feature as many, women-led MSMEs on the show as well. And I mean, as much as, I completely agree that we've come a long way. Ms. Amisha said that, 35% of MSMEs are women-led MSMEs. But what needs to be done to actually encourage them? What needs to be done to make them better leaders of tomorrow?
Before I get judged on how is she giving gyan about women empowerment, I must say that in the 7 years journey of education, I've had the privilege to interview more than 400 to 500 women, because women is a big sector in the education system. All my teachers are women. So that gave me the passion of women empowerment, because I listened to their problems. I understood the requirement of supporting them to get into the education sector. And it's a huge challenge out there because you're multitasking every day. It's not a single task that you're doing as a woman. You're also taking care at home. You're being a daughter, you're being a daughter-in-law, you're being a mother, you're being a mother-in-law. And it's not easy, right? So to women out there, I think one of the biggest thing in empowerment, especially for women, is sisterhood. I feel we as women should understand another woman's problem, and we should support 10 other women around us to grow. And that will really help because we can understand them better. I feel it's easier for us as women to understand another woman's problem than to expect a man to understand another woman's problem. So that's the biggest thing. And I also feel we don't live anywhere today in a male-dominant society. We only live in a male-biased society. And I would like to say why bias is, I don't know how many of you in the audience, if I say the word farmer to you, how many of you think of an old man with an axe?
Yeah.
But I want you to know that about 85 or 83% of the workforce of Indian farming is actually women. So the narrative has to change. The narrative has to change in my textbooks in the education sector. The narrative has to change in your advertisement when you're giving your advertisements on your media. The narrative have to change in the Netflix shows when you're showing the woman, not a single woman, but a family woman out there, because those narratives influence us. Today, influencers have become so big because they bring about a narrative in us. So those things will really empower women around us, will give us the confidence that we can also be in that picture.
Absolutely. Aishwarya, you also come from two very influential families in Karnataka. Tell me, how did that shape your approach, in terms of your professional choices, your personal identity? What can you tell us?
I've always looked at it as a privilege, and I feel like it gives me a strength and a motivation, saying that I have so many people around me who have created a mark for themselves in a society. That gives me a pressure that I also need to create my own identity up there. And the fact that they have been in the sector where they have created services for people around and grown the society and not just grown themselves, which is why education for me was a powerful place where I'm not just growing other people, but I'm growing entrepreneurs for tomorrow who will grow my country tomorrow. So that itself was ambition for me, and that really shaped me as a person. But it's also, they say, right, the 5 people around you actually make you who you are and influence the person you are. So I had the people around me who were striving for something better. So that made me the person who I am. So I'm striving for something better every day. So I want to become a better version every day. So it's not always, when you say influential families, I feel like today I'm known partly because of those influential families, but I'm waiting for a day where those influential families are known because of my name, and that's my goal, to go ahead.
Absolutely. Finally, as we are wrapping up this conversation, tell me, what is your vision for India's education sector, and how do you see yourself, how do you see you playing a role, in the broader picture?
I think the Indian education sector has to move towards a learner-centric education system where we all have to become learners first. It's not just the children who come into schools to become learners or not students. It should also become the educators who have to become learners. That has to first change. And we as parents sitting down here, have to change that when you send someone to school, it's not just the marks or the academics, it's also the overall development of your child. Is your child coming back home and how is he talking to your servant? How is he talking to your neighbor? How is he collaborating well with people is very important. Today we're talking about entrepreneurship. What are the skills in entrepreneurship? Are you able to collaborate well, communicate well is very important. But are we testing those skills at school? Is a question that we need to ask. But I also want to put it on record today saying that today when you look at the world, I think the top CEOs of the world in the best companies have the Indian education system, right? So we're doing something right. We just have to figure that out and put that on the map and say Indian education system has to become the best education system in the world. We have the opportunity, we have the scale, and let's make a mark and let's show ourselves, show our culture, show our ethics, show our values, and give that importance over memory and make it more relatable for people to apply and not grow alone that matters, but grow together as a country that matters, and that should become the basis of education system in our country.
Aisshwarya, it was fantastic chatting with you. Thank you so much for being here today. I think those were some really, really insightful takeaways. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.